People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Carl Jung's warning cuts deep, because you already know it to be true. Look at your own life. You have been too available, always answering, always bending, always ready to meet the needs of others. And yet, the more you give, the more invisible you become. The world drinks from you and leaves you empty. They take your time, your patience, your attention, until nothing remains but exhaustion. You say yes when you mean no. You stay late when you want to leave. You smile while inside you feel yourself fading. This is the silent slavery of availability, your soul traded away piece by piece in the name of being useful. At first, it feels like kindness. It feels like love. But over time, you notice something bitter. People don't respect what is always available. The friend who never says no is the one taken for granted. The partner who bends too far is the one whose love is assumed, never cherished. Even in work, the employee who is endlessly reachable is not admired. They are drained until they burn out. Your constant presence is not a gift. It becomes a background noise others stop hearing. Like a candle burning for everyone but itself, you shine until you disappear. And so you begin to cling to safety, believing it is wiser to be agreeable, quieter, less confrontational. Safety feels like a shield. You avoid conflict, you avoid rejection, you avoid the sharp edges of life. But safety comes with a hidden cost. It kills slowly. The soul is not built for endless comfort. The more you try to play safe, the more you betray the dangerous spark inside you, the one that longs to live, to risk, to create. Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Safety keeps you from that terrifying freedom. You might avoid pain, yes, but you also avoid yourself. Think about the times you stayed silent when you wanted to speak. Think about the dreams you buried because they felt too risky. Think about the moments you agreed just to keep the peace. That silence, that burial, that compliance, it may have kept you safe, but it suffocated your spirit. Safety becomes a coffin lined with comfort. And the truth you don't want to admit is this: your need to be safe is the very thing that kills your freedom. Yet even in your silence, something inside you rebels. You feel it late at night when you lie awake, haunted by restlessness. You feel it when you look in the mirror and see a stranger staring back, that whisper in your chest, that dangerous hunger. It is your soul reminding you that you were not born to be endlessly available, endlessly safe, endlessly obedient. You were born to be whole. You were born to be free. This whisper grows louder the more you ignore it. It is the ache that tells you you are meant for more than this performance. It is the fire that flickers when you dare to imagine a different life. It is the hunger for authenticity, for the right to stand as you are, unmasked, untamed, unapologetic. Jung called this individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are, beyond the roles, the masks, and the expectations. But this path is not soft. It is not polite. It is dangerous. Because when you start listening to that whisper, you threaten the order that others depend on. You will no longer always answer the phone. You will no longer bend when pressed. You will no longer live as a shadow of yourself. Instead, you will step into danger, the danger of being real, of being unavailable to the demands that drain you, of being free. This is the painful truth. Your availability has cost you your soul. Your safety has cost you your freedom. But inside, the whisper still calls you. And if you listen, if you dare to follow it, everything begins to change. Be unavailable, be dangerous, be free. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Jung's words pierce through illusions. And here you see how comfort, belonging, and even love can become prisons dressed as blessings. You believe you are safe, protected, even cherished, but underneath, chains are tightening. What you call love may not be love at all. What you call comfort may be the cage that stops you from ever living free. Comfort whispers softly, like a lullaby. It tells you to stay where you are, not to rock the boat, not to risk the unknown. At first, it feels sweet. The steady job, the predictable relationship, the familiar daily routine, all of it promises safety. But if you look closely, comfort carries a hidden price. You stop growing, you stop risking, you stop daring to listen to the wild parts of your soul. You cling to the routine, even as it suffocates you. Think of the countless people who stay in jobs that drain them simply because leaving feels unsafe. Think of relationships held together, not by passion, but by fear of loneliness. Comfort becomes a padded cell soft enough to sleep in, but impossible to escape. And the irony is, the more comfortable you feel, the less alive you become. Then comes the mask of love. What you think is love often isn't love at all. It's a transaction. You give in order to be given. You obey in order to be accepted. You shrink your truth so that you won't be abandoned. Many couples don't love each other. They bargain with each other. I will give you my loyalty if you give me your approval. I will hide my pain if you let me belong. This isn't love, it's dependency. Real love embraces truth, even when it hurts. False love demands obedience. And deep down, you know the difference. When you feel you must constantly earn affection, when silence is safer than honesty, when being yourself risks rejection. That isn't love. That's fear wearing a mask. Jung once said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power." But what most call love is not ruled by love at all. It is ruled by power and control. And at the heart of it all is the hunger for approval. Approval feels like oxygen. A smile, a nod, a compliment. It soothes the aching child inside you who feared abandonment. But what begins as comfort quickly turns into an addiction. You start to live, not by your own inner compass, but by the applause of others. Every choice bends toward acceptance. The clothes you wear, the words you say, even the dreams you abandon. You are no longer free. You are owned. Approval becomes the leash around your neck. It controls you, and you barely notice, because the leash feels warm. Yet every time you crave it, you hand over more of your freedom. This is why Jung warned that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, but you cannot become yourself while enslaved to approval. What feels like security is really submission. What feels like belonging is really captivity. The illusions of comfort, love, and approval keep you asleep. They tell you you are safe, but in truth they keep you from life itself. To step beyond them is frightening. You risk rejection, loneliness, uncertainty, but only beyond these illusions does real freedom begin. Because true love cannot be bought, true belonging cannot be begged for, and true comfort only comes when you stand whole, even if it costs you everything. Do not mistake your cage for safety. Do not mistake dependency for love. Do not mistake approval for life. Be unavailable. Be dangerous. Be free. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Carl Jung's words carry the weight of a lifetime, because to accept yourself means to face what you have long buried, the wounds you ignored, the memories you tried to erase, the impulses you called shame. These do not vanish. They live in the shadows, waiting, and until you turn and face them, they rule you. You think you are making choices, but the truth is harsher. You think you chose, but your wounds chose for you. Your shadow is an invisible puppeteer. You may fall in love and believe it is destiny, when in truth it is the echo of childhood pain. You may chase a career, not because it is your calling, but because you are still trying to prove your worth to a parent who never saw you. You may smile politely while your soul screams, because once upon a time, speaking your truth brought punishment. Think of the partner who seems familiar from the first glance. That magnetic pull is not always love. It is recognition. Your wounds see theirs, and together they replay the old story. The strings tighten. The puppet moves, and you convince yourself this is freedom. But freedom is impossible when every step is already scripted by the ghosts of your past. The shadow has a cruel rhythm. Repetition. You find yourself in the same heartbreak, only with a different face. The same failures, the same betrayals, the same quiet self-sabotage. It is not coincidence. It is compulsion. Jung called it the compulsion to repeat, the psyche's attempt to resolve what was never healed. Like a scratched record, your life plays the same song again and again until you finally listen. How many times have you sworn, never again, only to wake up inside the same storm? The toxic relationship you thought you escaped returns in new clothing. The self-doubt you tried to bury reappears the moment success is near. These repetitions are not accidents, they are signals. The shadow feeds on them, demanding your attention until you turn toward the wound itself. But here lies the doorway, turning to face it. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The shadow is not an enemy to be destroyed. It is a mirror, showing you the parts of yourself you abandoned. To face it is to look into that mirror without flinching. To admit your jealousy, your anger, your fear, your hunger. To own the parts of you that were denied love. Imagine standing before your shadow. It is dark, it is twisted, it is painful, but it is also you, and when you reach out to it, something shifts. The puppeteer's strings fall. The cycle loosens. You reclaim the power to choose. This is not easy work. It feels like walking into a storm, but every step you take toward the shadow is a step back to yourself. And only then can you stop being ruled by wounds you never healed. You are not a puppet. You are not condemned to repeat forever. You can face the darkness, and in that confrontation, you find the freedom that was always waiting. Face the shadow, break the cycle, reclaim your freedom. Man cannot stand a meaningless life. Carl Jung's warning cuts deep. Because one day you wake up and realize the life you built was not yours. You lived for expectations, for approval, for roles handed to you like costumes, and when those costumes fall away, the collapse begins. The mask shatters, the false self dissolves. What remains is silence, and in that silence a scream. The breaking point arrives like an earthquake. At first it is cracked. The job that drains your soul, the relationship that feels like a cage, the smile you force while your spirit suffocates. Then the tremor becomes a collapse. You look in the mirror and no longer recognize the face staring back. Despair floods in. Rage at the wasted years, grief for the unlived life. Emptiness where meaning should have been. You begin to ask, who was I living for? Parents who wanted safety over passion. A partner who loved the mask but not the soul beneath it. A society that rewards conformity and punishes truth. The collapse strips away every illusion, and though it feels like death, it is the first taste of freedom. And then comes the void of self. The terrifying question, who am I without the roles? You built your life on being the caretaker, the achiever, the reliable one, the pleaser. When those roles vanish, you stand naked before yourself. No mask to hide behind. no applause to reassure you. It feels like freefall into nothingness. Panic rises because the ego hates the unknown. Yet this void is not emptiness, it is possibility. In losing the false self, you create space for the authentic one to emerge. Imagine standing in a burned field. The soil looks barren, but beneath it lies the seed of renewal. The void is your burned field. The question is not a curse, but an opening. If you are no longer who you pretended to be, then who can you become? The collapse is not the end. It is the gateway. Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." The shattering of identity is initiation, a sacred dismantling of everything false. The ego resists, screaming to rebuild the old mask, but the deeper self whispers, "Let it fall." Only when the tower crumbles can the foundation of truth be seen. Collapse is a storm that tears the roof from your house, yet through the open sky you finally see the stars. This is the paradox of destruction. It is also creation. The end of the mask is the beginning of you. So, when your identity lies in pieces, do not rush to glue it back together. Do not fear the silence or the void. Walk into it, because collapse is not your enemy. It is your birth. Let what is false collapse, so what is true can rise. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Jung's words echo here in the hollow silence after heartbreak. You believe you have lost love, yet what you lost was not love at all. It was dependency dressed in its mask. The grief is real, the tears fall heavy, but they do not mourn love. They mourn illusion. The false loss is a cruel trick. You replay memories, believing you had something eternal, sacred, but if you look closer, you see how much of it was built on fear. Fear of being alone, fear of not being chosen, fear of displeasing the one who gave you crumbs of affection. What you called love was often compliance, a bargain. I will betray myself if only you will not leave me. That bargain feels like love when you are inside it, because the chain becomes familiar, even comforting. But the grief that strikes when it ends is not the grief of losing love. It is the grief of losing the fantasy, the lie that kept you safe. And yet, this grief carries within it a hidden gift: clarity. When the illusion dissolves, the chains loosen. At first, it felt dangerous. You panic because clarity strips you bare. You can no longer hide behind the excuse that someone else held your worth. The truth cuts sharp. If it was dependency, it was never love. That cut is painful, but it is also freedom. The moment you stop calling chains love, you stop clinging to them. You stop kneeling before people who only offered conditions. Clarity is a blade. It severs illusions, and though your hands tremble, you begin to taste air again. This is where the possibility of true love begins. Love beyond dependency is not born from need, but from freedom. You will know you have reached it when you are no longer afraid to be alone, when you are strong enough to say no, when your presence is not purchased by your availability, but chosen by your authenticity. Real love requires that you stand whole. It asks that you give, not to avoid abandonment, but because your cup overflows. Love beyond dependency is not a chain, it is a flame, alive only in the presence of freedom. So the reframe is this: you did not lose love, you lost what was never love in the first place. And that loss is not the end, but the beginning. It was never love, it was a lesson. And now you are free. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. Jung's warning cuts sharp. You cannot become free by hiding from your own shadow. You become free by meeting it, by daring to look at the parts of yourself you were taught to fear. Only then do you discover the most dangerous version of yourself. Danger, in this sense, is not violence. It is not chaos. It is the unshakable strength of being unmoanable. Imagine the people in your past who once pulled your strings with guilt, with silence, with rejection. They thrived on your fear of abandonment. They fed on your need for approval. But when you meet your shadow, their grip breaks. Because you no longer beg for permission to exist. You no longer barter away your truth just to be loved. That is what makes you dangerous. No one can buy you. No one can threaten you. No one can control you. This is not about becoming flawless. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Real empowerment is not purity, it is integration. You bring your anger, your envy, your hunger out of hiding. You see how they have distorted your choices, and you reclaim their energy. The anger you once turned inward becomes courage to set boundaries. The envy you once denied becomes inspiration to rise. The hunger you once shamed becomes a drive toward creation. You stop pretending to be harmless. You stop disowning your power. You stand whole, shadow and light together, no longer fractured. And in that wholeness, freedom blooms. Individuation. Jung's great teaching is not about becoming perfect, it is about becoming complete. When you unite the sides of yourself, you stop living as a mask. You walk into the world with a steady fire in your chest. You can be gentle without being weak. You can be fierce without being cruel. You are no longer owned by fear, no longer broken by rejection. You are dangerous because you are whole, and wholeness cannot be controlled. The shadow faced becomes strength. The self united becomes free. Peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of inner strength. Imagine standing before a storm. The winds scream, the waves crash, the world shakes. Yet inside you, silence, not numbness, not a weakness. Silence born of power. This is the paradox of becoming truly free. You are dangerous, yet you radiate peace. The lion does not roar to prove itself. It does not chase every threat. Its danger lies in its calm. The lion rests in the grass, golden eyes half closed, utterly unshaken. It knows what it is. It does not need applause. It does not need permission. That is the calm power you carry when you no longer chase love, when you no longer beg for belonging. You walk into rooms without forcing yourself to be seen. You walk out of rooms without the need for approval. And yet your presence is undeniable. This calm strength makes you unavailable in a way that terrifies those who once fed on your obedience. Unavailable does not mean cold. It does not mean cruel. It means your time, your love, your attention are sacred offerings, not commodities. You no longer answer every demand. You no longer trade pieces of yourself just to be kept around. When you give now, it comes from freedom. When you love now, it comes from choice, not desperation. And that is the only soil where real love can grow. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That privilege comes when you stop being consumed by chaos, when you no longer confuse recklessness with freedom, or submission with love. True freedom is measured in peace. You carry danger within you because you no longer need to be controlled. You carry peace within you because you no longer need to control. Both live together in you now, the sharp edge and the quiet center. So let the world demand. Let it tempt. Let it roar. You do not have to answer. You do not have to prove. You know the truth. Strength is silent, love is chosen, and peace is power. Be unavailable. Be dangerous. Be free.